If you picture the mist rolling over the Bronte Moors, that scene now represents more than just a page in literary history. It's become a focal point for global conservation efforts. I'm curious, how does a landscape from classic novels end up as a model for nature protection worldwide?
Today is May 16th, 2025. Just a few days ago, on May 13th, the UK government officially designated the Bradford Pennine Gateway National Nature Reserve. It spans more than 1,200 hectares across West Yorkshire, including the area often called Bronte Country. That's the same landscape that inspired novels like Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre.
Exactly. And it's important to mention, it's not only famous for literature. The reserve contains some of the rarest habitats in the UK: peat bogs, heathlands, wetlands. You'll find species like the curlew, golden plover, adders, and short-eared owls. Quite a few of these are endangered or considered priority species.
But why now? Bronte Country's been there for centuries. What's triggered this new designation at this moment?
A region's seen a steady decline in biodiversity, and habitats have become fragmented, a trend we're seeing globally. This new reserve is part of a broader national initiative called the King Series of National Nature Reserves. The main goal is to start reversing those declines. About 90% of the area is made up of these priority habitats. Out of the whole reserve, 738 hectares are now getting new protections, and 58% is classified as a site of special scientific interest.
So, it's more than just putting up a sign or drawing boundaries on a map. There's a real framework here. Is this connected to some of the UK's wider environmental promises?
Yes, it's directly linked to the government's goal of protecting 30% of UK land for nature by 2030. But accessibility is also key. Bradford's home to over 500,000 people, and the idea is to connect those communities, urban and suburban, to nature. It's not just about remote, rural areas.
That's unusual. Most reserves are pretty far from where people live. Here, the city meets the countryside. Does that influence how people experience conservation?
Definitely. The aim is to remove both physical and social barriers. They want everyone, young people, underserved groups, city residents, to have direct access to these landscapes. And there's a cultural side. Bradford is the UK City of Culture this year, so the reserve is tying together conservation and cultural heritage.
Earlier, you mentioned the Bronte Parsonage Museum. How does the new reserve incorporate places like that with conservation work?
There's a plan for integrated management. Sites like the Parsonage Museum are part of the reserve area. They're developing educational programs for visitors, so people can learn about both the wildlife and the literary history. And by protecting the habitat, they're preserving the landscape that inspired the novels, not just the buildings themselves.
Does this change the outlook for tourism? If more people visit, is there a risk to the landscape?
That's a real concern. To address it, authorities are setting up designated paths and visitor zones to reduce disturbance to wildlife. The idea is to find a balance, welcome more visitors but keep tourism sustainable. They're also involving local residents in decisions, so those living in the area have a say in how things are managed.
Could other countries apply this model, especially where natural and cultural heritage are closely linked?
That's the intention. The approach fits with international conservation guidelines. By protecting nature and culture together, it sets a new standard. Other countries are watching. Integrated models like this could be adapted to landscapes connected to writers, artists, or even indigenous histories.
And does this help tackle bigger issues like climate change or rapid urban growth?
It's one part of the solution. By protecting habitats and making them accessible, you build public support for conservation. It also demonstrates that preserving nature and celebrating culture can go hand in hand. They actually strengthen each other.
So Bronte Country becomes a kind of test case. If this works, it might encourage other places to do something similar. Is that what people are hoping for?
That's exactly it. The big question now is whether this approach can be used around the world to protect both biodiversity and the stories that matter to us all. What do you think?
It feels like a good moment to wrap up. We've gone from wind-swept moors in literature to a real-world conservation experiment, bringing together ecology, heritage, and community.
Thank you for joining us. Next time you come across a windswept moor, maybe pause to think, what stories and which species are we choosing to protect for the future?
Thanks for listening. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.